Hello, I'm Eric Smith. Welcome again to People and Politics. This is part two of our programs on Cuba. You might be able to tell that this is my beloved Havana, Cuba shirt that I'm going to wear some when I'm down there, and I wear occasionally here in Jacksonville. Our guest again is Betsy Lovett, who was on the last program. Betsy, welcome again.
Thank you.
We had
I am so
more
thankful
fun
and grateful. And
you know, the one thing I didn't really get into last time when we talked about our upcoming trade mission to Cuba with some other business people and all your history about Cuba and the things that the Lovett Steamship Company was doing in trade between Jacksonville and Miami and Cuba. We didn't have you tell the story of the ceremony where you were escorted from the island. Can you share that with us?
On my last day in Cuba, I had royal treatment. Not necessarily what I would have selected, but there was no fear or fright. No, it was in Cuba, the 26th day of July, 1956, which was the timing of their revolution. The Batista and the Castro group were fighting in Veradero Beach. And of course, they were getting rid of a lot of Americans, and particularly, I guess, since we were involved in the business of the train ferry, the container load, we had to go out. Well, they came and got me at the National Hotel, and really and truly, I wasn't afraid. I don't know why. None of us seemed to be. They were very nice, picked me up and said, we're taking you, get your stuff. I had a little time in which to collect my stuff.
Or was it the Batista people or the Castro people?
The Castro, not the Cubans, the Castro people. It was Castro's
But they were very polite and nice.
Really, I still look back on that.
I thought you told me once that they frisked you before
Oh, no, that's what I said. But let me tell you, I'll get into that. So, in any case, they came and said, we're going to take you, get your things, we're going to take you to the old P&O, the same steamship that the cruise ship that all the honeymooners would go down on, to Cuba on. And so I went, and I had to go through the frisking, rather through whatever they do to test you, and finally they said, put your arms up, which I did, and they kind of looked around, and then I put my arms down, and I said, oh, do that again, because I knew they didn't know what the world I was talking about, and it was all a crazy, silly thing. They kind of chuckled a little, but they didn't know. But anyway, there was no problem, and they said, Billy will follow you, or your husband will follow you in 3 weeks, and everything will be okay. And so I went home, and we communicated after I got home, and everything was fine. And he did come on. He had to sell get rid of the property, and they didn't get anything. It was all confiscated. He didn't get anything for any of it, but he was safe and he was home, and that was what mattered most of all.
Yes, indeed. You know, you shared with me a story I want you to share with our viewers about Billy and the rum shipment from Havana.
Well, it was the Bacardi group out of Puerto Rico, and I think George Dorian was running it for a while. I don't believe maybe not back then, because he's still young enough, I think. Anyway, I was told by George that the first load of rum that came out of Puerto Rico and went on the train ferry to Miami. And that was kind of an interesting sort of history maker to me.
Indeed. And today we have in Jacksonville Bacardi.
Yes, and we have the Bacardi and all. They make several different white rum, red, dark rum, all kinds, and they're still a very outstanding company.
Very well. You and I have talked about making a documentary
Yes.
about the historic relationship between Jacksonville and Cuba, and going back way before you and I were born to the 1895 and that relationship. And I must show you that I've kind of dummied up this poster that someday I'm going to get professionally redone, and perhaps, if not using the documentary, at least take it with us to Cuba. It was originally a poster from the Tampa International Airport. I just borrowed portions of it and put in jaguars and
Oh, it's wonderful.
our city
And the city with the bridge.
Jacksonville and the beaches. Yes,
well, and the
indeed.
National Hotel. And
Indeed.
Cuba.
You know, well, it really, like you, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been to Cuba twice. I went once when I was city council president with the chairman of the Jacksonville Port Authority. We went down to Cuba. We had some meetings with their port officials, and I remember the first thing out of this fellow's mouth was, well, what could we do? Well, in those days, we really couldn't do much, but yet we found on the wall plaques that were presented to the Port Authority fairly recently, even back in the day, from the Port of New Orleans, the Port of Tampa, and so on and so forth. The second time I went was for the law school where I was a professor. But like you, I'm excited about going back. And one of the things Al Fox says is we need a connection. And this documentary is a connection where
That would be the greatest thing.
where he could introduce our group to some very high-ranking officials. The other thing Al Fox said is, you know, Tampa had Jose Marti down there during the Cuban Revolution. So I went to see my friend Emily Liska at the Jacksonville Historical Society.
Yes, yes, and she's so knowledgeable on all of these things. I just think there would be jubilation and dancing in the streets and people lined up to go.
Well, Betsy, look what I found here. Jacksonville, back in the late 1890s, was just bubbling with enthusiasm and passion for the Cuban revolutionaries. Jose Marti was here a number of times, and Napoleon Bonaparte Broward.
Oh,
What a
one of
guy.
our stars.
What a star. One of the best governors in Florida history.
Absolutely.
But before he was governor, he and his friends built an ocean-going tug called the Three Friends.
Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah, here's a picture of it.
He was an extraordinary human being.
And the other boat is the Dauntless, and they were running men and munitions through the Spanish blockade to Cuba.
Isn't that something?
And they were, when you saw that picture, they'd whited out the names of the boats so that they had the Spanish Armada after them. They had the United States Coast Guard after them.
They would have been destroyed.
Napoleon Bonaparte Broward was indicted for running those illegal shipments.
Yes. Isn't that remarkable? That should all be brought up, exposed. I mean, there's so much, such a connection. And you mentioned also the excitement. But think about it, everybody all over the country, and I mentioned it a while ago, once they got married, they wanted a honeymoon in Cuba. It was so glamorous. It was so beautiful. The people were wonderful.
Indeed.
The food was marvelous.
And so the documentary opens with what was happening in Jacksonville. There were all kinds of things leading up to war with Spain, and once the Maine, the ship blew up and went down, it was Katie bar the door.
Yeah, that's it.
And
should be.
Yeah, and so Jacksonville became the third largest troop encampment in the United States. And interestingly, even before that, the Jacksonville City Council had passed a resolution condemning the brutality of the Spaniards, would you believe?
Isn't that remarkable?
And
I did not know that.
yeah,
Oh, look. Oh,
you didn't know this guy either, Betsy,
no.
but this is
Well,
William
fortunately,
Jennings
I'd be in a
Bryan.
little dark hole right now, I'm afraid.
Yeah, William Jennings Bryan
Yes, I
was
know
a
the
lieutenant
name.
colonel.
I knew his grandchildren very well.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they lived in Orange. Some of them lived in Orange Park.
Well, I have once again,
I'm
as
sure
our
that's-
former president would say, misunderestimated you. But this is he had his 3rd Nebraska troops drilling on Pablo Beach, which is now Jacksonville Beach.
Isn't that something?
And
Well, and you know, the reason I'm quite sure is Jacksonville Beach, Atlantic Beach, Neptune, and all through that part, which is really sort of north of Ponte Vedra, has that hard white sand, wide beaches, and they could. Ponte Vedra is utterly divine, but it doesn't. The water doesn't seem to go back, and it's more of a crushy sand, not like coquina, but nevertheless. But all the place. I mean, Jacksonville Beach does have. So the horses and the people can easily march and train.
Easily.
whatever.
Well, you've got. I think I'm going to have you narrate this documentary, Betsy. You're that good.
No,
Now,
thank you, dear, but I'm not. Oh yes, this is wonderful.
this is East Springfield. That was Camp Cuba Libre. Tens of thousands of troops poured in. Amazing. And there were more troops in Jacksonville at the time than population. It's
I didn't know that.
it's just amazing. And then you also flash forward to a city of tents, soggy tents.
Oh
Excuse me. And this is Forsyth Street,
yes.
where
the
the American troops were drilling in preparation for leaving for Cuba. So that is
Look at here with the guns and
Yeah.
all the men out there. Those enormous one-shot deals. They were something. That
So-
you ever? Wouldn't it, I guess that came a lot through the Jacksonville Historical Society.
the pictures. are
Emily.
there. Yes, Emily Rutherford. I can't say enough for her.
Well, she's been with them so long. She's still very young. She's remarkable.
Do you know what the Jacksonville Historical Society, her office, and the curator and all those people in the old hospital.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the old.
Across the street.
Yeah, right
Oh, well,
there
I
next
mean,
to the
down.
ballpark. And it's like stepping into a time machine. They have boxes and boxes of pictures of things like the old Cuban consulate. Was on Pearl Street up until through 1956.
See, that is so.
They have pictures of the parties they had and the formal functions and the
Yes.
relationship between officials and business people and the Cubans then. So we talk about that in the documentary.
Well, you should, and people go down there, and they take many things. My grandfather was fighting in the Civil War, and my grandmother was born really in 1865 at the end of it. So he was 18 when he went in. But I have letters that I did give to. I've given a lot of stuff, but this is sort of off the subject. But this is the sort of thing, if people have them, they should turn them in because they're invaluable. I mean, truly, they're history for the future. But these letters, my grandfather was taken prisoner outside of Washington in Virginia, and he wrote letters back saying to his family, please send all the dried meat, all the things that he said the rats, we get so little food and the rats eat it before, jump into it. And this way they won't eat the dried hams and the bacon and all of those things because this is so salty.
Interesting. Who knew?
And so, I gave a lot of things. I have others but it's really fun because if you want to see these letters, I mean, these are things that go back to 1865 and the end of the Civil War and all. And so save everything you have that could be put there. There are a lot of things that maybe are duplicates. That's all right.
You know, one of the things that I didn't bring with me is they actually had envelopes printed with Camp Cuba Libre, Jacksonville, Florida, and they have letters that were sent from Camp Cuba Libre around the country.
Isn't that wonderful?
It really is. It really is. But in our documentary, we flash way forward into the 50s, and of course that's where Betsy comes in and all that great conversation we had on the last program, and we talk about the Lovetts and the Lovett stores and how it all evolved into Winn-Dixie over the years, and fascinating stuff. But you know, today, so many people are going and doing good things. We have a little church, our little Episcopal Church, St. George. It's in the woods way back there, and every year a group of them go down to a little church in the kind of in the hinterlands in Cuba, and they take things that they need like soap and toiletries.
It's so important. But you know, it's wonderful for the people that receive it in Cuba, but it does a heart full of gold and help and joy for the person who gives it.
That it does. You know, and there's not a day that goes by that you don't see the spirit of the ordinary people in Cuba and the industriousness. An article recently about the innovative things they're doing with the internet. You know, the government doesn't allow them to have much access to the regular internet, but they have ways of putting together little groups in neighborhoods and communicating with each other, and even probably getting some information they really shouldn't have. But what they've done with automobiles is incredible.
Oh, I know. You could find any show car down there up on concrete blocks and it rusted out probably.
Oh,
but
no,
still, there are a lot of them that are still running.
They fix them with bubble gum and baling wire.
And none of this business of getting a new car every 4 years or 3 years or something.
That's not going to happen.
You keep it to 20 or 15, 18, 20 years.
But I think they're young people, they're millennials, are really poised to do great things.
To take off.
They're allowed to do some things, to put together some small businesses. But I think they really want to engage with the world, and I think that with the passing of Fidel Castro and his brother about to pass the baton within the next 2 years, you may well see some of the kind of evolution we saw in China and Vietnam to a government that says, well, we really, we give these folks some great health care. Apparently they have great health care.
That's part of why they are so confined.
They have one of the highest literacy rates in the world. So I think the next step has to be the economy. Pump up that economy, bring in the cruise ships, liberalize the policy toward business and trade.
Well, I mean, it'll open up. Veradero Beach was so beautiful back then. Just think, I mean, the Europeans have always been going. There's been no, a limit, they don't just let a boatload of them in. But they've always had the option to go, as I said earlier. Well, these places are going to be sold, the beaches, they'll be developed, they'll be fabulous. openings for the world to go. It'll be marvelous.
What's amazing is that we still are the only country in the world that is not engaging. And we tried to change things down there with the embargo for ever since
That was so sad.
'56.
Oh,
I'm not sure they hurt anybody but the little people. So it really hasn't worked.
No, none of it has worked. And the little people have been stifled in what they could have done and learned.
The Canadians, our neighbors, the Canadians,
They go.
the Mexicans, they have
They all
relations.
go.
The Canadians invested in the copper mines
Yeah.
down there,
Yeah.
and apparently they
Well,
haven't
we
been
had that
seized.
awful embargo going on, and just we were blocked. You couldn't. You'd be picked up.
So you're glad to see that change.
I certainly am, and it is an opportunity that should not be. I mean, everything should be offered to those people. They're alive. They're ready. They need. I mean, I think it'll be like firecrackers popping off the way they'll jump in and do, and create and build and learn and help. And I think probably some of the labor has a struggle because of, well, facilities for crops. I mean, the machinery and a lot of things. I don't think that has been, and I think that will be a big boost when that can be brought in. And less hand labor, more mechanized.
Well, Betsy, when you go to Cuba in April, what 3 things do you want to accomplish? You could go 4 if you want to.
Oh, I might go 5 or 6. One,
I believe you.
there are people right now that I do not mention names this time, but who are set to go, and they're very bright and very excited. And as soon as we can, just to bring to bring the ideas and what's needed and back to this country, so others can partake of the excitement. So,
Well, you know that.
and you're a marvelous leader, and whatever you ever started, you've completed. So I know this is another successful venture.
Well, now I really feel like I'm on the spot. But
Well, that's all right. You will succeed.
But you bring us to the last part of the documentary when we'll be talking about Cuba and the future, what lies beyond. And I remember putting together a conference. Heck, it was 16 years ago.
Really?
In Jacksonville. It was called Cuba, the New Realities. And we had people from all over the city and even people from the port who participated. And one of the main speakers was a fellow named Gustavo Machin. He was in charge of the Cuban interest section in Washington, and he talked. And we even had some people that kind of opposed trade, some Cuban people, but they were, like the rest of us, very civil. We had a difference of opinion. But Gustavo today is one of the top 3 Cubans over there, and he's a former ambassador from Cuba to Pakistan, would you believe?
Would you believe that? Isn't that amazing? That's another place my husband worked for a long time, Pakistan. And you know Shad Khan is from Pakistan.
Oh, Shad Khan, what a great Jacksonvillian.
He is simply wonderful, and he has a marvelous sense of humor. I've been certain places where I've had the privilege of talking to him at length, and we should go talk to Shad.
We should talk to him.
Well, we will. Why not?
That's exciting. That's exciting.
It is whatever we can. The more exposure, the more people involved, the faster the success of whatever we do.
You know, it's like von Goethe said, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it, for
Begin.
boldness.
Start. Why
Ha-
wait?
Yes, boldness
We're
has
wasting time.
genius, power, and magic in it.
Yes. Oh, yes. And what is that saying? I love it so much. No one stands taller than when he stoops to lift another up. We can lift these people.
That's exciting. So what you're saying is you want to meet the children down
I
there
want
and
the
help the children like
and
you have in
help the
Jacksonville.
children and help the teenagers, the older people, give them finally in their life when they've suffered through so much, joy, pleasure, privilege. There's so much that can be done. And Jacksonville will be the leader.
I like that.
Let's keep it in mind.
We are the bold new city of the South.
We are the bold new city of the South.
And Mayor Curry says we're going to do things.
And we are. Mayor Curry is a good man, too.
Yes, indeed. Ditto.
He is wonderful.
Well, Betsy, this has been
I've
another
loved it.
delicious half hour.
I've loved it. It's been wonderful fun. Now we can get the steamer rolling.
I like that. And on that note, this too is a wrap. And for People and Politics, I'm Eric Smith with our guest, Betsy Lovett, talking about the Cuba documentary and the mission to Cuba. Stay tuned. God bless you. God bless America. Be well.